The subjects of today's episodes have not yet been convicted of a crime. All accusations are alleged. And thank you, Constantine, for submitting today's episode.
Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown.
Now, while the collective rage currently is focused on WorldCom,
Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of looting hundreds of millions of dollars.
This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
Their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Find out more on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Lights shine onto the field. You feel the sweat trickle down your temple as the crowd roars. The pressure is on. You can't let your team down. You score the goal. Your team wins. Pride and adrenaline pump into your veins. You are victorious. Sports are a huge part. Sports are a huge part of any country's culture. We see this all over the world. No matter where you're from, sports are a huge deal. In America, 26.8 million children ages 6 through 17 participate in youth sports. That's over 53% of the children in the United States. As a parent, dealing with youth sports can be draining, especially if you have multiple children. It would be nice if they all participated in sports that were located in the exact same place. And that was the idea that Randy Miller had, and that was his passion project. Randy Miller envisioned a sports complex that would bring families and the community together, bonded by their love of the game. What happens when this amazing idea strikes out? Find out on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, Randy. You came up with the idea for a recreation center.
Yes.
Glad no one's ever thought of that before.
Hey, you know what? It could be the same but different.
This is like, oh, man, my passion is this new idea. It's this thing in your kitchen, all right? It's cold, and if you put things in it, it keeps it cold.
What would that be?
I'm thinking about calling it the Randy Refrigerator. You're like, no, Randy, that's a thing that already exists. You've seen it. You can't just say something that already exists, make it your passion, and think that you're such a cool person for creating the idea.
Damn, I wonder if that's just like white people having a podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of White Collars, Red Hands. I'm Kashad.
And I'm Nina.
And we are...
And we are the same but different.
We walked so that other white podcasters could run.
Some of them tripping and falling along the way. I'm trying to think of somebody who's made a fool of themselves, but I can't think of anybody.
On a podcast?
Well...
Oh, countless. Andrew Tate, Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those are white boys.
The other Tate brother.
I don't know.
Any alpha male white man podcast, basically. Yeah.
So before I get into today's topic, I did want to give you guys an update. I wanted to update you about Sean Kingston and what's going on with him. Was it last season or the season before we did an episode on Sean Kingston?
Pretty sure that was last season.
Yeah, Sean Kingston. If you want to go do a little bit of a deep dive and figure out exactly what he did, I highly encourage you go do so. But Sean Kingston did go on trial. He and his mother were both found guilty of wire fraud. They are still waiting on sentencing. Sentencing is actually going to happen July 11th. But as of right now, Kingston is under house arrest and his mother is still in federal custody. They can't pay the bail on that. So that is where they're at right now. Once we find out what their sentencing is, we will give you an update. But that's just where they're at right now.
Man, hoping that Justin Bieber bails him out.
He probably will not.
Yeah, probably not.
Or those beautiful girls, you know. Back to today's episode. Randy Miller. All right, so Randy Miller, he knew sports. He loved sports. Sports is what made Randy Miller Randy Miller.
My name's Randy Miller. I love sports. It's all you need to know about me. That's what I'm assuming that Randy Miller is a caricature like that.
He kind of looks like one a little bit. He does kind of look like a guy. He kind of looks like somebody drew him.
He's like,
a little bit.
Middle school football were the best years of my life. Like, he's that guy.
Yeah, no, 100% this man peaked in high school. I'm 100% sure.
Oh, high school. Okay, a little better than middle school football.
Yeah. Randy Miller had a vision to open a sports park so that people of all ages could come together and celebrate the love of the game.
Terrible movie.
So his sports complex, there would be multiple games going on at the same time. There would be soccer, basketball, you name it, they would have it. Randy, alongside his son Chad, set off to make their sports dream come true.
Oh my God, Randy and Chad on a sports mission.
Hey, Chad was gonna go pro, but then he got hurt. So,
you know, my son Chad, he could have made it in the league, but yeah, he tore his ACL, MCL, and also 3 heart ligaments when his girlfriend broke up with him.
The two of them created the company Legacy Cares Incorporated. Legacy Cares was a nonprofit organization with a home base in Mesa, Arizona. Do you know where that's at?
Yeah, I know where Mesa is.
Okay.
It's one of the biggest areas in Arizona.
Okay, I didn't know. It was a 503c company, which means they don't have to pay taxes. The primary goal of the organization was to develop, own, and operate sports and family entertainment facilities. The first time, so this actually had been a dream of Randy's for a really, really long time. This is something that he always wanted to do. And the first time that Randy tried to operate and found a sports complex, it didn't go as planned. He had tried to get investors and to get private loans, but it just didn't pan out. Originally, he tried to start up his sports complex in Phoenix, Arizona, which is the state's capital, but he was unsuccessful. So he decided to take his dream and move it over to Mesa. Mesa's about 30 minutes away from Phoenix. I kind of feel like you could say, if you live in Mesa, you could say you're from Phoenix and people really wouldn't bat an eye.
You probably would. Mesa is basically a suburb of Phoenix.
Oh, so it's like a Naperville, Chicago situation?
Yeah. So Phoenix is very large land-wise, and it has a lot of suburbs.
Okay.
That are kind of considered like the Phoenix area.
Got you.
We call it, if you're from Arizona, you call it the Valley. So like everything Phoenix and then around Phoenix is just called the Valley.
It's the Valley.
Yeah.
Going to Mesa worked. Miller set up his Legacy Cares as a way to get bonds to pay for the sports complex. But then he also set up Sports USA, which was a for-profit entity to manage the sports complex.
I need to make another company to manage this. What do I know about sports? The USA. We'll call it Sports USA. This guy. I don't know anything about him, really. He sounds kind of like an idiot. I know I'm painting him that way with the voice, but
yeah, you really are.
I feel like I'm hitting the like nail on the head here.
Listen, he's a simple man, Kashan. He's a simple man. He hasn't had not a lot of thoughts. So they had a vision. Bell Bank Park, and it was great. It was going to be a massive undertaking. It was 300 acres, which would have indoor and outdoor sports fields, courts, locker rooms, a 10,000 seat stadium. It would have offices, restaurants, and other entertainment spaces. In the end, the park had 194 fields. It was a really big. It was huge.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
It was huge. In the Bell Bank Park seemed like it would have had potential for not only just sporting events, but entertainment of all kinds. I mean, you have a 10,000 seat stadium. You could easily throw concerts there. Now, just for clarification, there were some conflicting names for the park. The sports complex opened under the name Bell Bank Park, and then it ended up going by Legacy Park. I'm sticking with Bell Bank Park, but if you look anything up on your own and you see a discrepancy, that's why it was listed as different names in multiple different sources. So it just depends on which source you're looking at.
Great. Sound like they really had their ducks in a row
They
here.
did. Now, a venture of this magnitude would need some serious funding. Randy, his son Chad, and their business partner / chief operating officer of Sports USA, Jeffrey De La Vega, knew this.
Finally, a name with some spice.
Yes, Jeffrey.
You know, we got Randy's, we got Chad's, and then, oh, look over here. It's Jeffrey De La Vega.
Jeffrey De La Vega. In 2019, the Millers had met with a bank to try to make their dream a reality. They met with an investment bank who said that they would need to fund their project through municipal bonds. So for anyone who isn't sure, a municipal bond this is from Fidelity, quote, municipal bonds are debt obligations issued by public entities that use the loans to fund public projects such as construction of schools, hospitals, and highways. All right. So they would have to pay these back to the investors. Okay. The investors would buy these bonds and then they would pay back the investors. They went this route because it's common for 503Cs to raise money this way. And Legacy Sports is, like I said earlier, a nonprofit 503C company or organization.
Plus, it's like a public area, right? So I feel like this is probably how just like public areas like parks and things are funded. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Millers and De La Vega knew that they were going to need investors to purchase the bonds if they were going to make Bell Bank Park a success. In 2020, Chad Miller and Jeffrey De La Vega presented investors with their goals and projections for the project. The issue? They weren't completely truthful. Miller and De La Vega told investors that Bell Bank Park would generate over $96 million in revenue its first year of operation. They told the investors that the park would be nearly full on opening day. Now, they came up with these numbers using a breakdown of which sports would be offered at the complex and their projected revenues. They had over 50 letters of intent from sports organizations that were going to move their programs over to Bell Bank Park.
I don't think they're making $96 million unless the fucking Diamondbacks are moving to Bell Bank Park, okay?
Well, listen, these letters of intent came from a variety of different sports clubs, including local, national, and international organizations. So they're coughing up a pretty penny. All right. In the letters of intent, some of them stated that they would just be moving games or practices to the complex. Others said that they would be moving their entire operations to the venue. Some of the letters included the number of people that would be present at the events and practices, and some had revenue projections in their letters of intent. Now, as an investor, if you're looking at this would really look legitimate, and it would also look like it's a good thing to put your money into. However, those letters of intent had the wrong intent. They were completely made up. Miller not only altered the letters to make them appear a certain way, but he also fabricated a large majority of them. He did this by using fake letterhead, forged signatures, which he would sometimes convince other people to do for him, and he would have incorrect or misspelled signatories. Now, Chad Miller wasn't doing this alone. All of the defendants were in on this, and they would share drafts of the fake documents between each other. More than once, Randy Miller would instruct Chad Miller to change the date on the documents. Other times, Chad Miller would ask De La Vega to make the letters of intent himself.
I think whoever should be the primary defendant on this case should be whoever bought the Canva premium subscription.
Ooh, good point.
Because it's your fault.
Yes. One letter said that an organization was committing to have a yearly event at Bell Bank Park. However, like I said, letterhead, fake. And it had misidentified the name of the sports organization that purportedly issued the letter and misspelled the last name of the purported signatory. Not only were the Millers fabricating letters of intent, but they were also faking something called pre-contracts as well, which the letters of intent were like, hey, we're going to bring this to your complex. We're going to have our practices here. We're going to have our events here. These pre-contracts were like, oh, we already have these set in stone. Like, these are for sure things that are going to be happening at our venue.
Okay, so the letters of intent are like the talking phase, and then the pre-contracts are like
More exclusive.
Hey, do you want to meet my friends?
Yeah.
Phase.
They're like exclusivity.
Nice.
They did this to make it look like there were more than just letters of intent. Many of these pre-agreements included binding contracts to make it look as though Bell Bank Park was going to have much more business than they really did. And much like the letters of intent, these pre-contracts contained forged signatures and were more often than not completely fabricated. So the sole purpose of these pre-contracts were to deceive investors. Like seeing the letters of intent, investors were given the pre-contracts when looking at the data of the sports complex before they decided on investing. Now, the letters of intent were false, the pre-contracts were fake, so it's not really surprising to hear that the projected revenue of Bellbank Park was also fabricated. Investors were presented with a 5-year revenue prediction. It was predicted that, like I said earlier, in 2022 alone, the year that the park opened, it would make $96 million. This was way more than what would be paid back to the bondholders. However, when Randy and Chad had met with a consultant for their original complex, the one in 2016 that they wanted to open in Phoenix, the consultant told them that the max amount of revenue that they would bring in would be $38 million. Which was, but that was like the absolute max. It was, I think that the actual number was like 28. He was like 22 or 28. And then he's like, absolute max, you'll make 38. The men did meet with a consultant to predict the revenue for the Mesa location. And when the consultant was given all of the information, he actually made an estimate that they would make about $84 million. And this was based off of his assumption, or their assumption, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, based off of their assumption that all of the letters of intent and the pre-contracts were legitimate. So they presented this person with all of their fake news, and they were like, oh yeah, you'll probably make around $84 million, which is still less than the $96 million that Miller and De La Vega told investors that their property was going to make.
That sounds good. Let's still bump it up by like 15%.
Add another 12 mil. I think that's doable, right?
That'll look good.
That'll look good. It's doable. These investors were duped at a webinar that was put on by the Millers and De La Vega. In the webinar, Chad Miller told potential investors that the park was sold at 90%, like they were going to have 90% occupancy on opening day, day one, and reiterated the letters of intent, knowing that he himself had fabricated and forged these documents. De La Vega told investors that the park would actually, they're like, oh yeah, it's at 90% now, but the day we open, it's going to be sold out. But they were just completely making this up to these people.
There can't be this much. I mean, we know there isn't, but like, who would believe there's this much like interest in just like a bunch of random sports fields?
Well, right. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, like Phoenix itself only has 1.65 million residents. Now, granted, they're saying that they're going to get people from all over the place coming here. However, the demand for 194 fields just cannot be that high.
Yeah, especially because there's already a whole string of really nice baseball fields there, because that's where
the Cardinals are at, right? No, I made that up.
The Cardinals are a football team.
Oh.
Well, they are. No. The Cardinals are also a baseball team, but they play in St. Louis, Missouri. Oh. The Cardinals in Arizona are the football team.
Oh. Is there a baseball team in Arizona?
So spring training plays there. So half of the major league teams play spring training in Mesa. Half of them play in Florida.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so they already have nice baseball fields.
Yeah, they have a whole string of them.
They don't need, I mean, like, now granted, Bellbank Park had more than just baseball fields. However, not all, I at least know that not all sports play at the same time.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of all those fields being used is not very high.
There's like, we got ice hockey teams coming in. We got luges. We got
rugby.
We got curling. Everything that would normally be there during summer, we have.
We've got it all. Gymnastics.
We got the biathlon, the one where they ski and then shoot guns. It's one of the weirdest Olympic sports.
I did hear about that one. I didn't. I've watched it.
You've watched the biathlon?
Yeah, I have.
Then why you pretend like you don't know the fuck I'm talking about?
Well, I forgot that's what it was called. You think I remember what that was called?
I don't know. Maybe.
My mom made me watch it when I was a kid. because she likes to cross-country ski.
Sounds like something your fucking mom would do.
Yeah, you've met her. All right. There was a second bond offering that took place, and there was $33 million in additional bonds that were issued. Now, this whole entire offering was based off of the 2020 data, which included the letters of interest and the pre-contracts. With the two municipal bond offerings in both 2020 and 2021, over $284 million was raised for the sports complex. It was stated that investors would be paid back in cash after the park opened.
Oh my God, $250 million.
Yeah, I mean, they were successful in getting the money at least.
Because they lied.
Yeah. And just a little fib.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one. Saying they're going to make 3 times the money that they were going to make?
Yeah.
This is a small lie.
Just a little lie. Now, $284 million is a lot of money. So much money that you wouldn't notice if someone went missing, right? Well, Randy Miller, Chad Miller, and Jeffrey De La Vega, they also had a hard job. And they all took money that they acquired from deceiving investors and used it to lavish themselves in the finer things in life, okay? Chad Miller paid himself $30,000 per month out of the Sports USA account. That's $360,000 per year. Sports USA also paid De La Vega a consulting fee of approximately $20,000 out of the 2020 bond offering. Randy Miller received $230,000 out of the 2020 bond offerings. And it was also noted that the men paid themselves $100,000 more than they were supposed to for their salaries on top of the other money that they had already funneled out of the bonds. It was also cited that the men bought a Chevy Tahoe with investor funds, a Cadillac Escalade, and that $400,000 of that money was used to buy Randy Miller a new home.
We all drive the Tahoe together. We get in and we have boys' nights on Fridays.
Fridays?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fridays for the boys.
We go to our bowling league and drink copious amounts of Bud Light.
Oh, they totally drink Bud Light.
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah. Are you kidding me?
So, it was opening day, January of 2022. Investors were excited to see their investment thrive like they had been promised. However, they woke up to an unfortunate reality when Bell Bank Park only had a fraction of the demand that was promised to them by the Millers. Bell Bank Park struggled to keep afloat. It wasn't just that first opening day that was lackluster. It seemed that the need for such an elaborate sports complex might not have been there at all, like Kashan said.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were far fewer events and the attendance was lacking. In 2022, Bell Bank Park had a revenue of under $28 million. Which is honestly not bad.
To be fair, that's what the original person had said they could expect to get from it.
Yes. Yeah, that consultant was correct. But it was, even though that person was correct, it was far less than the $96 million that they had promised investors. The park brought in a revenue of 60% less than was presented to the investors. Due to the lack of attendance at the park, the bonds quickly fell. Legacy Cares was not able to make the principal payments to the bondholders. By October 2022, those bonds were in default. There was an attempt to refinance them, but it was unsuccessful. Legacy Cares had no other options. They weren't able to pay their investors. They hardly had money to keep the lights on at their sprawling complex. On May 1st, 2023, less than a year and a half after their initial opening, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. There was no option but to sell Bell Bank Park. It was sold for $26 million and now goes by the name of Arizona Athletic Grounds. Investors lost out on this investment entirely. After selling the complex for $26 million, there were construction fees and liens that had to be paid, and the bankruptcy only reclaimed $2.5 million of the $284 million that was raised.
So, quick math, less than 1%.
Oof. Yeah, I was like, what is that percentage?
I don't know. It's like 0.9 something.
Yeah, it's bad. That's bad. So, Randy Miller, Chad Miller, and Jeffrey De La Vega have been charged with, quote, 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire and securities fraud, which carries a maximum term of 5 years in prison, 1 count of securities fraud, and 1 count of wire fraud, each of which carries a maximum term of 20 years in prison, and 1 count of aggravated identity theft, which carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 2 years in prison, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. Randy and Chad Miller must also surrender any property that has been purchased with the bond payments.
Ooh, so Randy lost his house.
And the Tahoe.
No, not
and the Escalade.
Not the Tahoe. How are the boys going to get to boys' night on Fridays?
I don't know.
No.
They're not gonna.
That's so sad. Drop an F in the chat for boys' night on Fridays.
Fail. They have not gone to court yet, so if we have an update on their case, we will update you. Bellbank Park not only fumbled, but they have been permanently placed in the penalty box. Randy, Chad, and Jeffrey could have had something great. Their sports complex could have been successful and amazing, but instead, they let greed cloud their judgment until they were completely in left field. Bellbank Park is still struggling to be successful to this day, even under new ownership. The investors who put their hard-earned money into this endeavor will likely never see a return on their investment, and the men behind it will end up in bars.
In bars?
Oops, behind bars.
Sounds like a fun time.
And the men behind it will end up behind bars. Thank you so much for listening to this fan-submitted episode. Thank you so much, Constantine. We appreciate it. This was a fun one. It was a little bit short, but we appreciate it. I probably never would have found this if I hadn't been sent this. So if you are listening and you find a white collar crime story that you find interesting, please send it our way. There's always, unfortunately, white collar crime happening, and a lot of it slips through the cracks sometimes, especially if it's local news. So please send it our way. You can send us stories via social media. All of our social media accounts. We've got facebook.com/whitecollarsredhands. We have X at White Collars Pod. We're on Instagram at White Collars_Red Hands. We're on TikTok at White Collars Red Hands. We are on YouTube at, you guessed it, White Collars Red Hands. You can also submit fan episodes. You also can submit, I can't talk today. You can also submit episodes via our email. That is whitecollarsredhands@gmail.com. If you want a free way to support us, go follow those socials. Also, leave us a review. We love a 5-star review, but an honest review works as well. You can do that on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. A not free way to support us is by going over to our website, whitecollarsredhands.com. Clicking on that merch tab, it'll take you over to TeePublic, and you can buy some merch with our little logo on it. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I told it backwards. Oh, tell a friend.
I was just about to say.
Tell a friend about us, please, 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 please. Word of mouth is the best way to spread news about a podcast. So, thanks.
Or don't tell a friend. Tell your enemies.
Or tell your enemies.
Show dominance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yell podcast recommendations at them.
Yes.
Until they're tired of it and they can't take anymore.
Yep.
And then they'll fucking leave you alone.
Yep, that'll work too.
Yeah.
All right. Now I think that might be it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on another episode of White Collars Red Hands.